Trav, good to be here.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're chatting about our gatherings, and no doubt everyone's kind of like interested in hearing what's going on in our gatherings. This is kind of like my Chris to you, but it's kind of like Chris and Trav to everyone.
Happy to join in. That's good.
No, it's good to have you. Trav, what excites you about the vision for our congregations, our gatherings?
I mean, I'm really excited that, a lot of it's the same things that church is always about, which is gathering around the word in prayer. And so we want to continue to make sure that our structured times and our unstructured times are all about that. Our services, and when we're having structured times, when we're reading the Bible and praying together and hearing the Bible opened up and explained, when we're able to eventually sing, all of those things, what you would expect of church, which is fantastic. And then the unstructured times, I think the vision for our church and how we can continue to grow our services and grow our times together. Really excited how our unstructured times can support that as well and facilitate that. All that one another language, that we can be sowing the word into each other's lives, that we can be praying with one another, bearing with one another, but also celebrating and rejoicing with one another. And so I'm really excited about the vision for creating those places as well in the spaces that we have around church where that can happen. Yep. So facilitating, not just a cool environment or a fun place to hang out, which is nice, but somewhere where discipleship can happen, which is so much more valuable and so much more rewarding. So that's really exciting for me moving forward. What's something that's exciting you about the vision, Chris?
Well, look, I think that it's just living out what the picture of Paul has for churches. I'm thinking about 2 Thessalonians 1 verse 3, and I've been talking about this for a while, but we always ought to thank God for you, brothers and sisters, and rightly so, because your faith is growing more and more, and the love all of you have for one another is increasing. And there's this picture of church life of their faith increasing, hearing the word of God, not just on the lips of the preacher, but on the lips of each other, and that picture of loving, caring for one another. And love is driven by knowledge. I know what people need, they know me, I know how to encourage them. And I think one of the things that really excites me is thinking that that's the vision we have for each one of our congregations, is actually of that being the case, the structured time, unstructured time, of taking responsibility for the discipleship of the people in my congregation. And I think that one of the things that it infects us as in our culture, us as human beings, is thinking, I'm really happy for everyone out there to serve me. Mark 10:45 teaches us that's not the case. Jesus came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Yeah. And so I know that our church here, just service is such an important part of what it looks like to be a disciple of Jesus. And that includes church. So when I say, we're planning to have a kids ministry at 9 o'clock service, and have a kids ministry at 5 o'clock service, and 10, kind of the new 10:45. And everyone's going like, oh wow, that's great. But you think that's not because someone else is doing it. It's because we're doing it. We're taking responsibility for that, and that's like every part of our service. But what excites me about that is that we can then think about multiplying that out. That model means that we're not reliant on someone else, and let's say a diminishing resource, for instance, that we can make this happen. We can make it happen at Silverdale. We can make this happen at Luddenham. We can plant gatherings like this, and plant a second one at Silverdale, where we care for one another and really want to be able to disciple one another, see other people come to faith and integrate it into our community. Yeah. But I think that the challenge then is you go, we need to do this. We're thinking of gathering in a few weeks' time. What do we need to do, Trav? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, I think
how's church going to be different, and how's church going to be the same when we come back?
Yeah, and I think what you said is right. We can do this in that we as the church together. That's that kind of every member ministry, and there's going to be, as we've talked about, a period there where church is going to be wildly different. You know, we're still going to have a whole bunch of restrictions. We mentioned before about singing, not going to be possible, and meeting and check-ins, all these kind of things will be different. So when we return, the plan will be to continue having watch parties, continue having a pre-packaged service in that sense, that will continue to August, because we're going to need to build teams for all these new services and these new
we've got to build
models.
teams, but there's still going to be people watching at home, still people who are feeling vulnerable, who are maybe symptomatic, whatever it might be. And even in our gathering spaces, we're still going to be governed in July by the 4 square metre rule. So it's not just like flicking a switch and it all goes back on.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of like, even if we could, we can't, but then we need to build these teams as well.
Yeah, and I think having a church where care and pastoral care of one another, and particularly in terms of ministry, is paramount. So, ministry isn't exclusive to being able to care for one another, making sure no one's doing too much and that no one's being borne the pressure of doing everything in the church, but making sure that there's opportunities for everyone to participate and get in, as you said, of that everyone's helping out and lending a hand, taking responsibility for that discipleship. And so that takes teams to make sure that people are cared for and make sure that people are growing in their ministry as they're serving, that they're being cared for as they're serving, so that they're not going to crash and burn. And that takes time to build teams. And so we want to do this well. We don't just want to, flick a switch and all of a sudden the systems are there in place magically. This is going to take, a bunch of time to figure out with these service times at 9 and 10:45, where do people lie in these services, and are people wanting to serve more, or post-corona people wanting to serve less, and we want to have everyone to have the opportunity to serve as much or as little as they can, but hopefully everyone can still serve, and there's opportunities for that. So so I mean,
I'm thinking we're going till August, so the idea is watch parties into at least to the beginning of August. Now let's build the teams, and let's you kind of build those teams. You can't make it all happen, so you need people who can take responsibility for those teams, be part of those teams. We're not just chucking people on a kind of a roster and saying off you go, do that, without having those people to support and encourage them and show them what to do.
That's right.
How do we make sure that some people don't do too much, but everyone does something? So that's an important little principle I heard you say.
Yeah.
Everyone does something and no one does too much. Because often in church life, it can feel like 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a few people feel burnt out, and other people might feel, resentful that the opportunities are things that they can't connect with, or whatever it might be. How do we help people match people's gifts with the things that can help serve the body, help serve our church?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think a lot of that's going to come from the various opportunities, and the opportunities are going to change over the 6 weeks to beyond. And so in the first 6 weeks, teams like check-in teams are going to be so crucial. There's going to be teams that are needed
because government requirements of recording gatherings.
Absolutely.
Right?
So that's going to be a new thing for us as a church. At the door, people checking in, everyone, not just kids, but all. Every individual that sets foot into church. There's going to need to be cleaning teams now that we have regulations about what needs to be cleaned and how it needs to be cleaned.
It's not just vacuuming, is it? It's kind of disinfectant on the door handles.
The whole shebang, yep.
And it means we can't have Bibles out, and we can't have, bits of paper out, and we can't have... So just even those kinds of things are going to be different when people come back to church.
So there's going to be new teams that we're going to be needing to resource. So there's going to be new opportunities for people to serve in these ways on a Sunday. And then as church comes back and the services, kind of as we know it, will be restarted in one sense, there'll also be new teams where we'll still want to live stream services, because we want to make sure, again, the most vulnerable in our community who have to stay at home and can't physically be there with us are still loved and cared for and served. And so there's going to be new teams to make that work on a tech level. There's going to be new teams of Bible readers and prayers, because people are shifting services and moving around. And so all of this just means, in one sense, that there's going to be more opportunities than there's ever been before to serve.
Do you feel a bit overwhelmed by that? Because that's all happening in the next couple of months, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's all happening.
It's exciting,
but it's exciting. No, it's exciting. It's exciting because I think what it does is it provides this new season, I guess, in the life of the church and in the life of people who are keen to come back to church,
Yeah.
to be rethinking about how they can serve and what their commitments look like. For some, it's going to mean that the impact of Corona means that their life is more busy than it's ever been, more full, and so it's going to be harder for them. And for others, it's going to mean, hey, life has actually really changed and opened up for me, and now I have opportunities I never had before to serve. And so I think that's really great. What we want to do is to keep helping people find how they can serve, where they can serve, use what they have. And then also from an organisational level, we want to make sure that we're training up people and caring for people and putting teams in place again to make sure no one's being put on a roster and left to their own devices. And so therefore ministry isn't scary. It's not an unknown thing, but we'll train you, we'll teach you. If you want to learn how to operate a video camera in church and you have zero knowledge, then that is fine, because we're going to take the time that it's needed to train up and to get the skills that we need to do all these things and to do them well so that we can love others.
And Trevor, I think there's going to be some new opportunities, not straight away, but as we kind of return, we're going to be talking about what kids ministry looks like. I'm going to be talking to Peter Ray about what that looks like. And we're going to be thinking about what it looks like to take responsibility for that as a gathering, as a congregation. But then also thinking about, kind of the new backyard space, thinking about hospitality and thinking about what does it look like to actually have shared meals together on some kind of regular basis. So I'm looking forward to being on some kind of barbecue team or something or other down the track. There's going to be a few new things in there as well, a few new teams there.
Yeah.
But Trav, what's the next thing? So people, they've watched me probably and John Marnie chatting about our gatherings. They've picked a gathering.
Yep.
That might take a bit of conversation. And it's a lot easier for us if people lock in on a congregation, because we need to establish these groups of people. If things go back to the 50 and stuff, just dealing with coronavirus. But there might be some movement there. But people pick a congregation. What's the next step after doing that? What do they need to do?
There are two main things that are going to be happening for people to be able to respond as the next step. The first is more immediate, and that's going to be that as these videos go out and people are picking a congregation, we have an immediate need for getting these gatherings happening as we have our COVID gatherings in one sense, where we've got these new teams, we've got these immediate things that need to happen in just a short amount of time. And so we're going to need people to be part of cleaning teams and part of check-in teams and serving in these ways. And so we're going to need people to nominate that. There'll be a form there in the email that'll go out, and people can let us know as we come back to gathering in some kind of way, how they can be part of that, how they can be part of those teams to make that happen. And so that's going to be that first step. That's going to be really crucial. And really
click on the link at the end of the email where this video came.
That's right.
Respond on the form, and that's a really great way of that first step in serving each other.
Yeah, pick a congregation and then tell us how you can serve and make that congregation happen. And then as we are gathering over the next 6 weeks or beyond, however long it takes for us to form these teams and do all that, do it well, there'll be opportunities where we'll have conversations with people, and we'll continue to find out from within those congregations the opportunities that there will be to serve as we regather again in full, as we have church, maybe not completely as we knew it, but as it will continue to be, and there'll be more and more teams that'll be available at that point. So there's kind of those two stages to returning into serving in that sense. There's the immediate stage that we need to fill out those teams, and then there's going to be more teams that we'll continue to figure out and develop as time goes on. That's
great, Trav. Now I'm looking forward to something in particular, and I'm looking over there and thinking those doors being open on a Sunday, and one of the opportunities we have is that we have public meetings, that we can invite people to church. And there's probably people who have been watching online, we're going to be saying to them, look, you can turn up to church again. But people are inviting people along. And I think that no matter how someone is serving, that the church gathering, it's great for Christians, but it's awesome also for non-Christians to come along, for them to hear about Jesus for the first time. We're preaching through Mark's gospel, and we want them to be able to hear about Jesus too. So every element of people serving is towards that goal of people hearing the Word of God, being built up as Christians, but also hearing the Word of God for the first time. So I'm looking forward to meeting the people of this church, but also meeting some new people who we've never had before. So I think that everyone who serves, everyone who's here is just part of that, and that's what we were looking forward to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, Trav.
Thank you.